This was in 2002. And so we thought we were starting, it was going to be a couple years of work to get a plaque down there somewhere. And we're still working on that. It's going to happen. It's like we're right at the edge of it actually happening. Now what's going to happen is there's been nothing for years, and there's suddenly going to be a bunch of things. And that's really great. It's fantastic. But I think what we ended up doing, yes, I think it was pretty effective, was just two things. Researching, we realized that we didn't really know that much about the community. We sort of knew the bits and pieces of the evidence and the interviews, videos, and things around, but we didn't really understand, the parameters of when did the community get there, why was it there in that part of Vancouver, not somewhere else. What was the community like? What kind of people were there? Where were they from? Those sort of questions. And why wasn't it there anymore? That was the area of research that we ended up working on mostly, instead of really lobbying for a plaque. It was mostly just us trying to figure out where did the community come from, why did they end up there, what happened to them, where did they go? And so over the years, all of the writing that I did and the research about that I did, I ended up putting into this book that I published last year. So one of the essays in this book is all about Logan's Alley, and sort of all of the information that I gathered sort of dumped into this one essay. I think it's the longest single thing written about Logan's Alley anywhere. There should be a book about it, but I've done my part. Somebody else can take the research and I didn't do that. Hopefully somebody else. But I mean, it's the information just still keeps coming in. The nature of the black community in the city is such that, it was so small, and the racism in the city was primarily directed at other minority communities, right? At First Nations people and at Asians. So blacks were this kind of afterthought minority that was, people discriminated against, but there wasn't really a big concerted government effort to figure out where black people fit in things. It was kind of like, oh yeah, you're black folks. So there was no official segregation, but there was a kind of de facto segregation. That was why folks were down in that part of the city. But that was good in some ways. I mean, it made different opportunities arise than were in other parts of North America, maybe. It was bad in other ways, in that the black community didn't really have a whole lot of parallel institutions like African Americans set up, so things sort of survival mechanisms and different institutions that sort of foster coherence. So we never really had that. A few things, but nothing that was really enduring. And then also, I mean, it led to the situation that we're in now, where this generation we can be only one generation from a community like that, and have so little documentation of it, and it just sort of evaporate into not a whole lot of continuity. And people like me, who were just sort of 50 years later, just trying to figure out what was there. I don't think you'd see that in other communities with a big black population. There'd been some continuity. So that was the job, was to kind of connect up the past to the present era. And my hope is that any young black researcher coming along after me, won't be just sort of scrambling through the archives trying to find bits and pieces here and there to assemble the story. We'll have some idea, basic structure of what happened to the community roughly. But it's still, there's so much work to be done, and there's still so little that's actually put to print. And so just a couple weeks ago, I got an email from some guy who just bought an apartment in Coquitlam, and he's went to put his stuff in the storage space in the basement, and he thought it was full of boxes. And so he said he started checking stuff out. Threw out a dozen or so boxes before he realized that this might have some significance to the black community. And just from looking through it, found some interesting papers and stuff. And did some research on the web, found me, emailed me and said, I don't know, this might be significant to the black community. I'm going to check it out today unless you want it. And so I phoned him back frantically and said, don't throw anything else away, please. I'll come get it, or you can drop it off. And he arranged to. So he dropped it off. I got it in my house. Realized it seems to be stuff belonging to a woman named Elsie Crump. who was in 3 different black organizations in the 70s, in the National Canadian Council, National Council, Black Council of Canada, the Black Solidarity Association, and the BCAACP. It's minutes from all of these meetings. It's the transcripts of human rights claims that they made. It's the agendas of different conferences that they have. It's just this treasure trove of information. So, you know, this is kind of stuff that I had never even heard of the Black Solidarity Association. I didn't even know they existed. So I'm looking at this box. Holy shit! I mean, there's still. This is where the archive is. It's not in the City of Vancouver archives. It's not in the public library. It's in people's attics and basements and storage spaces getting chucked out. It terrifies me. But that's the nature of this community. I'm meeting with him this afternoon to give. This is her son. Give back these boxes because they're not mine, so I can't just turn them over to the archives. So I'm going to beg him to, if he doesn't give them to the archives, or give them to somebody who will house them in some protected way. You know, but I mean, I'm sort of sympathetic to, you know, someone who doesn't want to do that too. It's so weird. I mean, I think this is a community that's not used to looking at itself as historical. And in a lot of ways, the survival mechanism of the black community in Vancouver has been to fly under the radar, to not be noticed, to not be argued about, and to just survive. And take certain opportunities when they arose to step up a bit. And I think that I sort of proposed that a few different things might have happened to explain why the black community is no longer in that area. But I think one of the primary reasons was that the community has always been integrationist here and took the opportunity of the viaducts being put up and the community being marginalized to integrate, to move everywhere around Vancouver and not in the same neighborhood, which I think was kind of long. Something peculiar to this black community, that's what's interesting. It's funny, I used to look at the black community, you know, I got involved in identity politics because I was inspired by black nationalists like Malcolm X and that kind of radical, those sort of radical Afrocentrist kind of ideas. But after a while, you know, I found I'm kind of not really well suited to the city. And so I just started to, in the last 10 years or so, become interested in the things that make this community particular and interesting, that kind of differentiate this community from other communities. And that I think is one of the things. So that's where we're at. So I mean, now my role, I think, is kind of as, I think for the last 10 years with the Hogan's Alley Memorial Project, our role was really to raise public awareness. I'm really bad at navigating bureaucracies and things like that, so I was really not really the right person to be spearheading getting the city council to put the plaque up or anything like that. But I'm pretty good at bugging people about it and getting them to know about it and sort of gathering the information and disseminating the information. That's what I'm good at. And so I think we raised a lot of awareness about the community, so people hit a critical mass. A lot of people know about it who didn't know about it before. So now I feel like